Marcus Wilson is sitting beside me. He is the series producer of Doctor Who. Marcus, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We should say, so it's incredibly realistic, this pub, apart from the fact there's no heating at all.
No, indeed.
So we are actually gathered around an electric fire as we speak. It's impossibly cold today. It's painful when you step outside.
It's a chilly day in Cardiff.
It's just started to snow. Through the window I can see a big red emergency department sign, which is the outside of the hospital. Marcus, let's just talk about where Doctor Who is at. It comes back later this month, doesn't it? It's 30th of March.
Back on the 30th of March, yeah.
And there's often much that's a bit confusing about Doctor Who. Not just some of the storylines. Is this the second half of Series 7?
Yes, that's right. This is the seventh series.
Why don't you just call it Series 8?
Because you'd have to go back to the Series 6, which we split in half as well, so it's easy just to...
Why don't you just play by the rules?
No, Doctor Who never plays by the rules.
So yes, it's second half of Series 7. And this is, later, by the way, in a couple of minutes you'll hear us inside the TARDIS. And by that, I don't mean we walked inside the police box. I mean the actual enormous interior set.
As well, in fairness.
Yeah. But there is it's inside Studio 4, and it's the new interior of the TARDIS. So you'll hear us in there in a moment, and we go into the store where the Daleks are kept. And disappointingly, there's only about 6 of them. But Marcus, it's a big year. It's the 50th anniversary year of Doctor Who.
Yeah, indeed, it's a big year for us. We've got a lot of plans for this year. I mean, it's a huge celebration of the show. We've got the 50th anniversary episode coming in November.
Yeah. Which is in 3D.
Which will be in 3D, yeah. But before that, we've got these 8 episodes for the second half of Series 7.
Well, they're from Jenna Louise Coleman, who is officially the new assistant. Again, confusingly, I think she was in the first episode of Series 7, then disappeared, then came back for the Christmas episode, and now from the March 30th is like an official regular companion on the show.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the character of Clara has been threaded through Series 7. Stephen's got some great plans for the character.
So a series producer?
Yes.
What does that mean? What exactly do you do, Marcus?
I mean, the way I always describe my job is to bring Stephen Moffat's vision of Doctor Who to reality. It's my job to kind of marshal the crew and kind of basically keep the machine running.
Obviously, Stephen Moffat's a great writer, perhaps the greatest ever of the Doctor Who writers. Would you ever say does he ever submit an idea that you're not sure about? And would you ever say to him, Stephen, that one's a bit ropey?
Stephen, I think, enjoys testing us. I mean,
does he? Well, he will deliberately send you something that.
No, I think his imagination is limitless, and he likes to give us challenges. Usually, I end up reading the script, scratching my head, and going, "Okay, leave it with me."
But that point is what. Mitch Benn from the Now Show on Radio 4 is what makes Doctor Who magic, is that he says the imagination is limitless of Stephen, which is also true, and the parameters of the show are limitless, aren't they?
Well, that's the whole point of Doctor Who, is that it's the goes everywhere, does anything show, and that was what was always so great about it. That's what was so great about it, that when you have Doctor Who on, it somehow frees up the whole of the rest of TV to take risks. I think that was, I think we really felt Doctor Who's absence in the wilderness years when it wasn't on, and you got like 15 years of just coppers and lawyers on TV. And as soon as Doctor Who comes back, then you start to get things like Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes, and you start to get them more, that more. And, Sherlock, which for all that is basically a detective show, it's a fairly, outlandish, fast-paced, imaginative detective show. I think the fact that Doctor Who's on mean that the people who put TV together think, well, if Doctor Who's on, the audience can get their heads around that, maybe they can get their heads around this. It's kind of... science fiction gateway drug is a big way of describing it.
But it's unafraid to be quite complex and quite clever as a show, isn't it?
Oh, certainly since Stephen got hold of it, it really is.
Let's talk to Jenna Louise Coleman, who joins us, who is the new assistant. Jenna Louise, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Jenna Louise. Welcome to the programme.
Hello, thank you very much.
What a thrilling role you have there. Just on that point about the script and stories being complex, because you've obviously filmed this second half of Series 7, Jenna. Do you ever get the scripts and not entirely understand them?
I always completely understand them. However, trying to then describe them in an interview in your own words is always quite tricky. I found myself trying to kind of once explain the relativity of time in an interview or something like that. So it's best to leave that to Stephen, I've found.
So Harrison Ford used to talk about this on Star Wars a bit, didn't he? I think the trick is you just sort of say it with confidence.
You can type it, George, but you can't say it was the quote.
Exactly the quote.
Almost the quote. I'm leaving a word out. Hello, Jenna Louise. It's Mitch here, and I'm married to a Clara, so I'm very pleased that the Doctor has a Clara too. Everybody should have a Clara.
Clara is, of course, your character name. Yes. So you, Jenna Louise, when you got I was reading about when you got this part. I know it was you went through an audition process. You were given a code name. There's a long history of Doctor Who giving people code names. But were you a fan of Doctor Who? Did you know much about Doctor Who before you got this part as the new assistant?
I knew as much as kind of. I think it's impossible to not know about it whilst living in this country. So obviously I've known, who all the Doctors are and who all the companions are. But I was 18 when the 2005 series came back, and it was kind of, so I missed it growing up. And then I was at kind of an age where I missed a lot of the 2005 series. So I sat down and watched the 11th hour whilst I was auditioning, and just completely and utterly fell in love with it from there, but decided whilst auditioning not to watch any more on purpose.
So you didn't grow up being a big fan. When we a few minutes ago, and we'll play this tape shortly, Mitch and I went onto the set, into the interior of the TARDIS, which, my God, that was exciting.
Oh yes,
wasn't it?
Oh yes.
But was that exciting for you, Jenna? When you first went on there?
It was so exciting, but I can't tell you, it was such kind of, it was such a build-up, because the TARDIS, when I joined the show, the new TARDIS was still being built. So I was actually filming on the show for, I think it was about 4 months before I actually got onto the TARDIS. So you can kind of see it being built and see it getting bigger and changing. So the kind of the build-up towards it felt really big. So I think it's quite a special day. But I've never also seen Matt so excited to kind of have his toy back. He's huge,
He's quite excited. He's quite an excitable chap, Matt, isn't he? Jenna, just tell us about the process of getting the job, and I guess the lengths that you had to go to, and some of the lengths that the programme went to hide the fact that you'd got this job.
I was called in by Andy Pryor, the casting director, to audition for a Mary Poppins-esque character against the Doctor, which was the initial idea. And it's interesting because as I was auditioning, the process kind of evolved as time went on, as the idea for the companion did as well. So I had about 3 auditions, 2 of which were with Matt, playing kind of all sorts of different characters. So I was kind of just turning up kind of with lots of accents prepared and lots of different characters, and kind of chopping and changing between the few and playing with Matt, really, not really understanding anything. And then it was from there that I got the job. And it was from there that the secrecy had to be kept as well.
What was your code name?
It was Men on Waves, which I was trying to work out for ages, because I heard that Karen had one, and I was convinced it was going to be the name. So I thought the character might have been called, I think it was Eva or something, but it turns out that it's Woman 7.
Woman 7?
Woman 7.
Not the least bit demeaning.
Yeah.
I don't think that means the 7th assistant. I think that means assistant in Marcus, you'll tell me this. I think that means assistant in Series 7.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
As a hardcore Doctor Who fan, Mitch, as a sort of anorak territory, I assume you love all of this code words, looking for code words, trying to decipher anagrams, which constantly go. There's a sort of meta level of Doctor Who fandom where you can look for those things buried in the scripts.
There is a bit, and I'm still kicking myself that I didn't figure out Melody Pond before I did.
Well, I've not worked it out now. What's that?
Melody Pond was the answer to Who River Song turned out to be. And that was sort of the big reveal for who River Song turned out to be. She turned out to be Amy's daughter, which was Melody Pond. It's a sort of pun on River Song. But I mean, I'm enjoying the sort of the building up mystery about who Cloud's turned out to be. That she's sort of already been brought in, killed off twice, and I should bring her back. But I'm wondering,
wasn't she a Dalek in the first time?
She turned out to be stuck inside a Dalek. Yes, it turned out to have been turned into a Dalek. I think there's also an element of, now that Arthur's left, they need the character who dies a lot.
Okay, so Arthur was Karen's partner.
Who's Rory? He used to kill him off every other episode. That's kind of a running joke. Oh my God, they killed Rory. That was kind of
So Karen Gillan played Amy, who was an assistant.
Yes.
Just Marcus, let me ask you this: what, just in general terms, you're familiar with the history of the show and the various people that have played the assistant to Doctor Who. What is the purpose of that role?
Well, the companion role, the assistant role, is
that the real word, companion?
Well, no, we use both. I mean, we use both. But it's really a person for the audience to identify with. It's you imagining yourself going on that journey. And the relationship's evolved over time. I think to begin with, it was something to scream at the monsters and ask questions. But it's so much more now. I mean, Clara really gives the Doctor a run for his money.
Okay. Now, we have here, I think we're going to play a clip here, which is this is what Matt Smith says is his favourite Doctor Who moment.
Oi, I told you to stay in there.
Oh, I didn't listen.
You do that a lot.
That's why you like me.
Who said I like you?
I think you just did.
You kissed me.
You blushed.
And with just... Shut up.
So that's the moment when you and he kissed during the Christmas special. Did you, let me ask you this, Jenna, did he, am I right in thinking that he urged you when you were trying to work out how your relationship would work on screen in Doctor Who, and you both talked about getting the rhythm, I think that's the word that you used, the rhythm of the relationship right, and he encouraged you to watch old Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy movies?
Yeah, it was, they're great actually. Oh, I had so much fun watching them. We were talking kind of a lot about pace because and how important pace is in the show, and especially with Stephen's writing, and kind of it's so rhythmical. And I was talking about the Newsroom, about Aaron Sorkin's series, and it's something that Matt mentioned, and you know, just trying to find kind of male-female duos. And he got me to watch all the Indiana Jones films as well, which I'd never ever watched before, shockingly. So it's just great kind of having things like that can feed into what you're doing.
Jenna Louise grew up not watching Doctor Who or having watched Indiana Jones. To someone like you, Mitch, I imagine that's unimaginable.
Yeah, I'm shuddering.
She might as well have said, I've never had any food.
I'm shuddering at the... Well, in fairness, no, I mean, you know, Jenna was, you know, born in the wilderness years. You know, she was sort of...
Is that what Doctor Who fans call the 1990s?
I think that's kind of how we regard it, isn't it, guys? Sort of 89 to 2005 as the wilderness
Was
years.
Paul McGann a good Doctor Who?
He's a great Doctor Who in the audios. I've done one with him. I was in one of the Paul McGann audios adventures. Army of Death. I played both a ravening monster and someone who gets dismembered by it.
I should explain, if you've just joined us, by the way, that we are at the BBC's Cardiff studios, their drama studios. We're on the set of Casualty now. Yes. We'll be in the TARDIS later. I think Paul McGann's brother might be in Casualty. Well, there's lots of McGanns.
No, he's in Call the Midwife. Or maybe, I don't know.
There's a lot of McGanns. There's a lot of McGanns.
There's definitely Steve is in Call the Midwife. He's the nice doctor.
Who's the weakest ever Doctor Who?
Oh, don't ask me that. I mean, I think the one who got the rawest deal was Colin Baker. I think, in many respects, I think he was a great choice. But I think the show was in such turmoil when he took it over that he never really got a fair crack at a whip. So I mean, whenever they do sort of, who was the least popular Doctor Who, Colin tends to win. But I think it's kind of unfair to him. I don't think any of them was a bad Doctor, but I think he probably got the rawest deal of all of them.
Jenna Louise Coleman, don't go back and watch the Colin Baker episodes. Let me ask you this, Jenna, and Marcus as well is with us, who is the series producer of Doctor Who, Marcus Wilson. Just tell, I understand the laws around not giving away secrets, but I'm sure you can tell us something about the, as it's called, second half of Series 7, and it starts on March the 30th.
That's right, yeah. It's an epic series. So Stephen's raised the bar again. It's full of huge variety. We get to go places we've never been before. We see some old friends, some old aliens. But
Cybermen.
I think it's fairly common knowledge that Cybermen are out there. But running through it all is the kind of delicious mystery of the Impossible Girl, who is Clara Oswald.
And getting to know her.
Yeah.
Jenna, does that make it quite a complex role for you to play, because it's almost several roles in one?
That's what's kind of such a joy about it, and is the fact that basically I've had so far what will be these kind of 3 entrances and these 3 different times to meet the Doctor. And also it's interesting for kind of a start of relationship between the Doctor and Clara, because, they don't just kind of, it's not as straightforward as they're just great friends who go on this adventure. There's so much kind of subtext and underneath the surface of them both trying to kind of figure each other out, and I have the idea that they're like magnetically drawn to each other, but there's nothing worse husband the Doctor hates then an unsolved mystery and something that he doesn't have the answer to. And that's what Clara is. So there's kind of, there's kind of a lot of tension between the surface between the two of them, and a lot of questions, I think it's going to make for a really interesting series.
Marcus Wilson, we have the 50th anniversary episode coming up, and that is on telly in November. And I think I'm right in thinking that you start filming that here in April.
That's right, yeah, in a couple of weeks.
Now let's stop messing around. How many of the old Doctors are going to be in the 50th anniversary special?
I couldn't possibly comment.
But there are going to be some.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Oh, come on, Marcus. You must be able to tell us that.
Only Stephen knows what he has planned for the anniversary.
At some point, some local around here is going to see Christopher Eccleston walking into the front of the studio, and then they're going to know.
I don't want to be rude about it, Marcus,
heard?
but you're outnumbered. There's 5 of us and 1 of you.
You must know. You must pick up intel from internet forums, and they are, of course, notoriously reliable. But what have you heard?
I've actually been trying to stay off them. Seriously, for the last 2 or 3 series, I've actually found it's more fun to stay off the internet forums.
It's more fun not to have not to know.
Try and stay unspoiled. Yeah, try and stay out the spoiler loop, because for the first couple of seasons I pretty much knew everything that was going to happen before the show started. So I've been trying to stay out. Basically, since Matt took over, I've been trying to stay out the spoiler loop, and it's more fun coming to it in ignorance, I find.
Jenna, how much are you sworn to secrecy about things? How does the secrecy lockdown work?
Oh, that you just basically don't tell anybody anything. And I've learned it's a new skill I've acquired in interviews of basically talking a lot without saying really anything.
Your next job should be a politician. That's what Marcus just did. I said, tell us about Series 7 Part 2, and he said, well, we're going to meet some old monsters and some new monsters. That's speaking and not really saying anything.
We all know that, Marcus. Yeah.
We're all carefully
a time machine.
Yeah. It's great that you do get that chance to surprise, and it's kind of what's so wonderful about the show. So it's good that you can do that.
And Marcus, we slightly lost the line there. I think what's happening is the listeners can hear Jenna perfectly well, but we're an outside broadcast, and the bit sending us the output is just broken down. But we'll keep talking. Marcus, we're going to assume off the bat that there are some new Doctor Who's in there. But that point about protecting the secrets is worth doing. I remember last year I hosted a screening for the first episode of Series 7 with Stephen Moffat, Matt Smith and Karen Gillan. And in that episode, so we had a theatre full of journalists, and in that episode Jenna turned up, and that was a massive surprise. And I remember Stephen saying to the journalist, please, can you keep that to yourself? Don't tell anyone that she turns up in that episode. Because in the end, you don't... It's not better for the viewers to know, is it?
No,
it's better for it to be a moment on the day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was genuinely delighted by that, and I'm sure the embargoes must be pretty, because I was in Merlin for 35 seconds in the last series, and I was embargoed like you wouldn't believe.
What's the punishment? What's the contract say? What happens if you reveal a secret from the show?
I don't even recall what the clause of the contract was, but I think it's just that you just don't ever get asked back to do anything else. I think is the main fear.
But for example, that secret about Jenna Louise appearing in the first episode of Season 7, did that remain a secret?
It did. It was amazing that everybody we asked to keep it a secret, kept the trust. It was brilliant.
What a risk that is, because you have to show journalists advanced screenings and then hope that journalists who are not the most reliable...
I think Stephen employed a strategy that hasn't been tried before, which is asking nicely.
Asking nicely. No, but their job is the antithesis of keeping a secret, isn't it? Jenna Louise, Jenna Louise, do you... I guess you don't know how long you're going to be in the show. You're in for this year. Do you know if you'll be in Season 8 yet?
I think I can say that, Marcus. I can say I will be in Season 8.
We'd love to keep Jenna as long as we can.
Has there ever been a companion who has straddled more than one Doctor?
Yeah.
Yes, Rose did.
Rose did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that may have... I'm not very good with innuendo. I think it's been pointed out into my headphones. It sounded a bit like innuendo, for which I apologise. It was not deliberate.
Liz Sladen straddled John Pertwee and Tom Baker, if that's the word we're going to use. Yeah. Who we had, Tegan, Nissa and Adric, all crossed over from Tom Baker into Peter Davison. Perry crossed over from Peter Davison into Colin Baker. Yeah. There's been a few.
Okay. Jenna Louise, let me just ask you this finally. I think Matt Smith is off the film. Oh, he's checking with the Doctor Who fans to make sure no one's been left out. So Jenna Louise, you could meet another Doctor. Of course you're going to meet another Doctor. You're going to meet all of the old Doctors in April. Jenna Louise,
yes.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Matt Smith is off to America, isn't he, to film. He's got a part in Ryan Gosling's directorial debut. And does that mean there will be a bigger gap than normal during the filming of Doctor Who? Does that mean you essentially have to find something else to do?
It does. It essentially means that I now have 4 months in the summer free, is what it essentially means. So we kind of have a big gap of filming before we're back again in September.
And do you know what you'll be doing in that gap yet?
Not as of yet. I definitely plan to be somewhere quite hot at some point, but that is as far as the planning has got.
Oh, okay. I was going to say what you could do is moonlight in Casualty, given that it's next door. But if you plan to be somewhere hot, you definitely don't want to hang around here. Jenna, congratulations. You're terrific in the part. All the best. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you back. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you back in Doctor Who on March the 30th. We shall take the news here, and then we will go and visit the TARDIS. We will be inside the TARDIS itself. We have the series producer of Doctor Who here. We have all sorts of Doctor Who enthusiasts. If you have any questions, we're at 85058, bacon@bbc.co.uk. It's going to be, because here's the thing. Now, this is the question, right? And I assume the scripts are now written for the 50th.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of either have all of the living ex-Doctors, I think, or none of them. Because then if you sort of, if they left out Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, that would be a terrible snub.
I've got a theory as to how they're going to do it, but I don't really want to share it with the people.
If it's a theory, it doesn't matter.
Well, no, I've got an idea of how they're going to do it, but I don't want to throw it out there just in case it's right.
Just say it anyway.
All right, what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to try and get the Doctors from Paul onwards to actually turn up and be in it, and all the previous ones, they're going to try and find some way of Forrest Gumping them in from old episodes.
Using old footage, okay.
That's my theory. I think rather than have a story where all the Doctors come together, have a story which basically the same thing happens to all of them in sequence, but rather than all trying to bring them in, like they did with the 3 Doctors and the 5 Doctors, bring them all together for any one story. Have sort of one thread which goes through all his incarnations. So, you know what I mean? So all 11 Doctors are involved, but they don't necessarily bring them all together and like they've done with the previous one. That's my theory. That's what I would do.
You exist in such a world, Mitch Penn from Radio 4's The Now Show, of Doctor Who fandom that you assume that everyone knows what the 3 Doctors and the 5 Doctors is.
3 Doctors at the 10th anniversary in 73, the 5 Doctors at the 20th anniversary in 83, and obviously it wasn't on in 93 or 2003, so this is the first big anniversary show I've had since. Okay. So, yeah.
Marcus? Let Stephen Moffat surprise you.